Sleep. Old dogs bark and the engines roar, steel and thunder shaking the floor. From the mountain trails to the river bend, we chase the wild till the daylight ends. Raise 'em up, let the whole world see. This is where we're born to be. Southern Bakkies and Beasts, rolling hard, never riding least. Mud on the doors and fire in our souls, living wide open with the bows in control. Southern Bakkies and Beasts.
There are some trips you plan because you want to go four-wheel driving, and then there are trips where everything seems to come together. The location, the people, the vehicles, and the weather. And you know before you've even left the tar seal that it's going to be one to remember. This was one of those days. Our destination was the Wilberforce Valley, deep in Canterbury's high country, and we definitely weren't heading out there alone. By the time everyone had gathered, we had a convoy of 24 four-wheel drives, 24 trucks, different builds, different drivers, different levels of experience, but all heading in the same direction. And joining us for this adventure were some pretty familiar names from the New Zealand four-wheel drive community. We had Scott Gray along for the trip, Pete from Perfect Pitch, Max Offroad, Ultimate four-wheel drive, the Cantabarians, and Carlos the Ghost Ranger. So as you can imagine, there was no shortage of impressive vehicles in the convoy. But today wasn't really about who had the biggest tires, the most expensive suspension, or the longest list of modifications. It was about getting out there together, because that's what the trips are really about. Exploring places most people never get to see, meeting people who share the same passion, and discovering another small piece of this incredible country we get to call home by going into the Wilberforce. As Christchurch and the Canterbury Plains disappear behind you, the landscape begins to change. The roads get quieter, the mountains get bigger, and eventually you reach that point where the normal roads ends and the adventure begins. The Wilberforce River lies within Canterbury's vast high country landscape, flowing through a valley shaped by water, ice, and time. This part of the South Island is dominated by braided river systems. From above, they look almost like giant silver veins running through the valley floor. Instead of flowing through one permanent channel, braided rivers constantly divide and reconnect. Gravel moves, channels change, banks disappear, and after a major flood, crossing you used only weeks earlier can look completely different. That's one of the things that makes four-wheel driving in Canterbury so interesting. You never really drive exactly the same river twice. And with 24 vehicles following one another into this landscape, the convoy itself became quite a sight. Looking back down the track, trucks seemed to stretch almost as far as you could see. Mountains ahead and that unmistakable sound of diesels working their way through the valley. From the air, you really start to understand just how small we are compared with this landscape. 24 trucks sounds like a massive convoy when you're sitting at the meeting point. Out here, the mountains make 24 trucks look tiny, and that's probably one of the reasons we keep coming back to places like this. There's something about the Canterbury high country that puts everything into perspective. No traffic lights, no phone calls, no deadlines, just a track in front of you and a radio full of voices behind you.
Without a snorkel, take the left option. The others can do as they wish. Quite deep on the other side, you can push it quite quickly. Yeah, if you haven't got a snorkel, take the left-hand option. It's pretty obvious. Back from the front here, that is one impressively long convoy, good lord. I know it doesn't do anything by half. No, I mean, I was back there and my word, it was like a new world superstar. Take
Moving 24 four-wheel drives through the backcountry isn't quite the same as heading out with 2 or 3 mates. Everything takes longer. A river crossing isn't finished when your truck reaches the other side. It's finished when the truck number 24 reaches the other side. A turn isn't just a turn. Someone needs to make sure the vehicles behind them has seen it. And when the convoy stretches out, communication becomes incredibly important. But there is also something special about traveling like this. You get to watch completely different vehicles tackle exactly the same terrain. Land cruisers, rangers, modified touring rigs, purpose-built four-wheel drives, vehicles on different tires, different suspension setups, and driven with completely different styles. Some drivers pick the smoothest possible line. Others, well, they occasionally pick the entertaining line. And with people like Scott Gray, Pete, Anu from Ultimate 4 Drive, and the rest of the crew scattered throughout the convoy, there was plenty of experience around if anything did go wrong. That doesn't mean you become careless. If anything, the big group makes good decisions even more important, because 24 trucks also means 24 vehicles that need to get home again.
Eventually, the valley opens up and the river becomes a major part of the journey. The Wilberforce forms part of the wider Rakaia River catchment, one of Canterbury's great braided river systems. The water we were driving beside has travelled down from the Southern Alps, fed by rainfall, snowmelt and countless smaller streams flowing out of the surrounding mountains. And although these rivers can sometimes look harmless, conditions can change incredibly quickly. Water levels rise, channels move, the current gets stronger, and what looks like a shallow crossing from the driver's seat can hide soft gravel or deeper holes. That's why river crossings deserve respect, especially when you're this far from town. For us today though, the river was part of the adventure. One by one, the vehicles made their way across, 24 trucks sending water away from their tires as they worked through the channels. This is one of those moments where the video doesn't really need much explaining. Sometimes it's better just to listen. The engines, the stones underneath the tires, the radios, and 24 trucks working their way through a Canterbury river. This is why we came out here. The further we travelled, the more remote everything started to feel. Behind us was civilization. Ahead of us were mountains. Every corner seemed to reveal another view. And every time you thought the valley couldn't get much better, it did. This landscape hasn't been designed for four-wheel drives. We're simply visitors passing through it. The valleys throughout this part of Canterbury were carved and reshaped over enormous periods of time by glaciers and rivers. When the glaciers retreated, they left behind huge quantities of rock and sediment. The rivers has been rearranging that material ever since. It's why the valley floor is covered in gravel, why the river constantly changes course, and why the mountains seem to rise almost vertically around you. For anyone interested in four-wheel driving, it's a playground. But for anyone interested in New Zealand itself, it's something much bigger. It's a glimpse of what this landscape looked like before roads and towns existed.
You can have the best four-wheel drive in the world. You can have lockers, winches, massive tyres and every accessory in the catalogue. But none of that guarantees a good day out. The people do. And looking around this convoy, that's probably what stood out the most. 24 vehicles meant 24 groups of people sharing the same day. People jumping out to guide someone through a section. People waiting for the vehicle behind them. And people who might have arrived as strangers, but weren't strangers for very long. That's one of the best things about the four-wheel drive community. A name you've only seen on Facebook or YouTube suddenly becomes the person parked beside you having a coffee. Today we had people and brands that many within the four-wheel drive community would recognize. But once we were out here, everybody was simply part of the convoy. Scott Gray was here for the same reason we were. Pete from Pitch Perfect was here for the same reason. Max Offroad, Ultimate Four Drive, the Cantabarians, and Carlos the Ghost Ranger. All of us had come out here because we love doing this. Getting away from the road, exploring New Zealand, and spending a day surrounded by good people and good trucks.
alles anerkannt ist. Ja, danke schön. Ja, da ist er da.
Backcountry huts are an important part of New Zealand's outdoor culture. Across the country, huts have provided shelter for generations of people working, exploring, hunting and travelling through remote areas. Some began as mustering or farming huts. Others were built for recreation or conservation work. And today, they remain landmarks in places where there might otherwise be very little evidence of people at all. For four-wheel drivers, reaching a remote hut often becomes the natural destination for a trip. It's somewhere to stop, get everyone together, have something to eat and stand around discussing all the important subjects in life, like tire pressure, suspension, which line someone should have taken 3 crossings ago, and why someone definitely needs bigger tires. By the time we reached the hut, everyone was ready for a break. Engines switched off, doors opened, chairs appeared, and suddenly our convoy turned into a small, temporary village. This was our afternoon snack stop. Nothing complicated, just food, drinks, conversation, and a chance to enjoy where we'd managed to get to. And that's another thing we love about these trips. Sometimes the best parts happen when the vehicles aren't moving. You spend hours concentrating on the tracks, rocks and river crossings. Then everything goes quiet. You stand there with something to eat and look around. Mountains in every direction. The river somewhere nearby. 24 dusty trucks parked outside a backcountry hut. And you realize this is a pretty good way to spend a day. Nobody's checking the time too closely, nobody's rushing. For a little while, the hut becomes ours. Not permanently, we're only passing through. And that's important to remember with places like this. Backcountry huts and remote valleys survive because people respect them. What we bring in, we take back out. The goal is simple. Enjoy it, look after it, and leave it ready for the next group who comes through.
And then came one of the highlights of the day, the waterfall. Hidden amongst this enormous high country landscape, water drops dramatically from the mountains above in the valley. From a distance, it's difficult to understand the scale. The surrounding cliffs and mountains are so large that the waterfall almost looks small, until you start comparing it with the landscape around it. Waterfalls like this are part of the reason these valleys continue to change. High in the mountains, rain and melting snow collect in the countless streams. Gravity takes over. The water finds weaknesses in the rocks and makes its way towards the valley floor. Over thousands of years, those streams help carve gullies and reshape the mountain sides. Standing there, looking at it, though, you're probably not thinking about geology. You're thinking, look at that. There are views the cameras capture well. And then there are views where you already know the footage isn't going to show what it felt like standing there. This was one of them. The sound of the water, the cold mountain air, 24 four-wheel drives parked somewhere behind us, and this enormous Canterbury landscape stretching in every direction. These are the moments that make the long drives, the fuel bills, and the endless modifications worth it. Because you can't bolt this feeling onto a truck. You have to come out here and find it.
Eventually though, every day trip reaches that moment. Someone looks at the time, someone says, we should probably start heading back, and 24 engines begin firing up again. There's always a slightly different feeling on the way home. In the morning, everything is anticipation. You don't know exactly what the day will bring. On the return trip, you're driving through the same landscape, carrying a day worth of memories with you. The river crossings that seemed unknown earlier now feel familiar. You recognize certain corners, certain rocks, certain sections of track, but in a braided river valley, familiarity should never become complacency. Conditions can change, so we still take our time, we still communicate, and we still make sure the truck behind us is there. Because the objective of any good four-wheel drive trip isn't simply reaching the destination, it's getting everyone back again.
When he goes back and reverses back too far, you just get up to where he can. When it spins, back up a metre and then just make that extra climb. He'll be up to about 3 goes. In a radio. Yeah, okay.
I don't know if he's got a radio.
Bring your nose up and I'll plug you in.
He's got a radio. Exactly.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Ranger!
Put in first gear. First gear. Put in third gear.
I usually one more no more, I break something. I threw it off.
Watching the convoy moving back through the valley was probably one of the favourite sights from the entire trip. One truck disappears around the corner, then another, until you've got this massive line of four-wheel drives snaking its way across the riverbed. And when you've got 24 trucks together, there's always something happening. Someone gets held up, someone stops for a photo, someone takes the wrong line, someone gets on the radio, and somehow, eventually, everyone catches up again. That's convoy life. While the trucks make for great footage, look beyond them. Look at where we are, the Southern Alps towering in the distance. Braided river channels running across the valley floor. Waterfalls coming down from the mountains, and kilometre after kilometre of Canterbury high country. We are incredibly lucky to have access to places like this, and with that privilege comes responsibility. Drive responsibility, respect private land and access restrictions. Don't leave rubbish, and make sure the next generation gets the opportunity to experience exactly what we're experiencing today. Because once access to places like this disappears, getting it back isn't always easy. People sometimes look at four-wheel driving and think it's simply about getting a vehicle stuck in mud. And sure, sometimes that happens, but for us, it's about much more than that. The truck is simply the tool that gets us here. Without four-wheel drive, there are places in New Zealand most of us would never experience. Places far away from highways and tourist stops. Places where there's no cafe at the end of the road, no gift shop, no big sign telling you where to stand for the photo, just wilderness. And a track disappearing into it. That's what keeps us coming back. Every trip is different, every group is different, and every time you come home, you've got another story. Today that story involved 24 four-wheel drives, a backcountry hut, a few snacks, plenty of river crossings, and one seriously beautiful part of Canterbury.
As we worked our way towards the end of the valley, the mountains slowly started disappearing behind us. Tires returned to easier ground, the convoy started bunching together again, and eventually that feeling of being completely remote started fading away. Soon we'd be back on normal roads, tires aired back up, radios quieter, everyone heading in different directions. Tomorrow the trucks would probably need washing. Somebody would discover a new rattle. Somebody else would already be looking online for the next modification they definitely don't need. And within a few days, the group chat would probably start asking the inevitable question, so, where are we going next? Because that's how this works. One trip finishes and immediately you start thinking about another.
Sunrise breaking over dusty tires, coffee brewing by the campfire. No deadlines, no city noise, just open tracks and freedom's voice. Windows down with the music loud, laughing hard with our off-road crowd. Every river, hill and trail, another story that we'll tell. We don't need much to feel alive. Just good mates and a four-wheel drive. We're living life off the beaten track, never looking back, no holding back. Mud on the tires, stars overhead. These are the moments we'll never forget. From mountain tops to the ocean side, every time feels like a brand new ride. Taking it slow, enjoying the view, living this off-road life like we were born to. Recovery boards and dusty boots, old back roads and hidden routes. Late night yards beneath the sky, watching shooting stars drift by. Ain't no shine with fireways, but it all ended in some memories made. No fancy plans, no need for more. This is the
But before we finish this one, we have to say a massive thanks to everybody who came along. 24 vehicles is a serious convoy, and getting a group that size through a full day in the backcountry takes patience, communication and teamwork. A huge thanks to Scott Gray, Pete from Pitch Perfect, Max Offroad, Ultimate 4-Wheel Drive, the Cantabarians, Carlos the Ghost Ranger, and every single person who joined the convoy and helped make this trip what it was. Days like this remind us why we started documenting these adventures in the first place. It's not just about showing the difficult sections. It's not just about recoveries. And it's definitely not just about the trucks. It's about capturing the places these trucks allow us to reach. The people we meet along the way, the memories we create while we're out there. Because one day the trucks will change. Some will be sold, some will be rebuilt. There will be bigger tires, new suspension, and probably plenty more scratches. But we'll always have the footage. 24 trucks heading into the Wilberforce, the waterfall dropping from the mountains, everyone standing around the hut having an afternoon snack, radios going all day, and another Canterbury adventure added to the list. This is Southern Bakkies Beasts. We're here to explore New Zealand, one track at a time. And if this is your kind of adventure, hit that subscribe button and come along for the next one, because there are still plenty of tracks left to explore, plenty of rivers left to cross, and plenty of stories left to tell. Until the next adventure, we'll see you out there, bold to roam.